Welcome back. Big day on Capitol Hill. It is their house in just a few hours when the 112th Congress is sworn in. John Boehner will be wielding the Speaker's gavel, and House Republicans will be in charge. Their first order of business, trying to repeal health care reform. And joining us now from Washington, two freshman members of the House. Karen Bass is a Democrat from California, and Paul Gosar is a Republican from Arizona. Good morning to both of you, and thanks for sitting side by side. We hope it's a sign of things to come, maybe some bipartisanship in Washington, D.C. Thanks again for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And Congressman Gosar, I want to start with you. I understand you are a dentist from Arizona, which might come in handy, seeing how you've pulled some teeth in your days, and sometimes passing legislation can be just like that. What do you hope to accomplish in Washington? I
hope to accomplish getting back to what people want to have done, and that is get our financial house in order, getting back to and empowering people to be involved in the process.
And Congresswoman Bass, I suppose I should be, technically speaking, referring to both of you as Congressman-elect and Congresswoman-elect, but
for a few more hours.
For a few more hours, Congresswoman-elect Bass, you were the Speaker in California, so you know a thing or two about counting votes. You're going to be very much in the minority these next couple of years. How are you going to get things done? How are you going to move your agenda forward?
Well, you know, first of all, I think our first order of business has to be jobs. It has to be getting Americans back to work. That's the #1 thing we need to do. And frankly, you know, it'll definitely feel familiar being in a crisis like we were in California. It'll be very different being in the minority. But you know what? I want to start the day off right. I'm sitting side by side with my colleague, and I'm hoping that we'll be able to work together, because I do believe everybody has the best intentions.
And I understand, Congressman-elect Gosar, you do believe in symbols a little bit. You have a lapel pin that you wear from time to time that is in the shape of a shovel. What's that all about?
Well, it just kind of reflects on the everyday average guy, and when the everyday person is surrounded by the pile that we're, you know, imposing on the American people, the only way you dig out is dig in one shovel at a time, and each one of us have to pick up our own shovel and start digging out.
And where do you stand on health care reform? Are you going to vote to repeal health care reform as soon as that vote comes up?
Yes, I am.
And Congresswoman Bass, Congressman-elect Bass, what do you make of that? What do you make of the fact that the Republicans, their first order of business is to go after health care reform?
Well, I actually think that's unfortunate. Frankly, I was very excited by the health care reform legislation, and Paul and I have a lot because we both have a healthcare background. I worked in healthcare for a number of years and was very excited the fact that when a child reaches 23, they don't have to lose their insurance. And if you have cancer, for example, my stepdaughter had leukemia. And, you know, as she becomes an adult, she wouldn't be able to get insurance because that's a pre-existing condition. But now she can have insurance. And the idea that we would actually take those benefits away from people, that's just hard for me to fathom. And then, frankly, we know that it won't pass. And so I'm very concerned about doing symbolic things when we still have unemployment as high as we do. We need to get to business, and I don't think that means doing symbolic measures.
Symbolic, your take on that? Is this just symbolic?
It isn't symbolic. I think what's happened to the elections brought it forward. It's an unpopular bill. Anytime you allow a bureaucrat, one bureaucrat, to dictate your health care, you got something flawed. And the way that we've built this health care system around a flawed system is erroneous, and bills like this shouldn't be passed.
And Congressman, I understand you brought in some associates of Sarah Palin onto your staff. We understand that that is the case. Are you going to be sort of speaking on her behalf up on Capitol Hill, getting her message across to your fellow House members?
I just have some friends that I met through dentistry that have some connections and have met Governor Palin. So
she endorsed you.
She did, and I'm proud of that, and I think. But Governor Palin speaks for herself, as does Paul Gosar.
And Congressman Bass, Congressman-elect Bass, one final thing. You know, we've been talking about the debt ceiling all morning long. We'll have to make this very brief. But if you could cut one thing to go after this $14 trillion debt that we have, what would be the one thing you would cut?
Well, I would definitely look at the defense budget. I do think we have room there, especially around the world. We have a lot of bases that I wonder whether or not they still need to be functioning. So I think there's room to cut. But one thing that I think is very important, it would always be irresponsible to bring the government to a halt. And if we don't vote to raise the debt ceiling, that's exactly what happens.
Congressman Gosar, are we going to see a government shutdown?
I don't think so, but I think in order to raise the debt ceiling, we have to get at the problem and what caused this problem and set landmarks and benchmarks that we have to achieve and dates that we're going to achieve it by government.
And you're willing to go, are you willing to go for a government shutdown if it means reining in spending, or is that out of the question for you?
I need some cooperation on both sides of the street to make sure that we're getting benchmarks and getting true reform, because we just can't keep raising the debt ceiling without having true reform with this financial crisis.
So Paul and I are going to cooperate, right?
All right, let's see him shake hands here. Very good. That's a good sign of things to come. We hope it lasts. Paul Gosar and Karen Bass, thanks so much for joining us this morning, and good luck up on the Hill.
Thanks for having us on.
Appreciate your time. Karen?
All right, well, it's lights out for old school bulbs coming up.